Final day of qualifying for the NHRA U.S. Nationals has been wrapped up. We have figured out our top 16 field going into tomorrow morning. Just so you reminder, because of, I believe, weather, they have moved up the start time. Top fuel, if you're going to be attending the event or watching online on NHRA TV, has been moved up to 10 a.m. So we're going to start a little bit earlier. We're going to roll out with top fuel. But let's first talk about today. First off, I want to give a shout out to Jessica from Scrappers Racing. She invited us earlier this week to go visit the Scrappers Racing trailer, give us a tour, show us around, and tell us more about the team. And it was an absolutely thrilling experience. We got to stand next to the car as they were warming it up. When we did the interview with Will Smith back on Friday, I stood in front of the car for the warm-up, and I thought, oh, it wasn't that bad, because I haven't been to a race in a couple years, so I haven't seen a warm-up in a while. What ends up happening is we stood right about across from where the engine was, and when they fired it up, all the nitrous exhaust fumes blew right over at us, and I actually had to run away and get out of the way because it was impossible for me to breathe. But shout out to him and cameraman Kevin for sticking it out and to get you guys this shot. So if you see the shot on screen right now of them warming up the engine, just know he was just about holding his breath the entire time while I was outside choking for air. After that, they literally just showed us around the trailer, showed us all the little nooks and crannies, the spare engines, the piston heads, the mechanic room where they're machining, just absolutely everything. They took us into the engineering room where the crew chiefs hang out and showed us where they store the car. It was an absolutely incredible experience and an incredible story of how Mike Salinas was able to start that team and kind of the idea where Scrappers Racing came from. So absolutely incredible to be a part of. A huge shout out to Jessica and all of Scrappers Racing for letting us go over there and check that out. Also want to give a shout out to Brian Lawler and Tony Pedregon on the Fox Sports booth. Earlier this week, Brian invited me and my friends to come up there and hang out with them as they were recording the broadcast for the U.S. Nationals, both qualifying, the final days of qualifying, as well as the Pep Boys All-Star Call-Out, which we'll get into in a second. It was a really cool experience getting to hang out with them, learn a little bit more about the sport, hear their stories, especially from both Brian, from his stories of covering IHRA events, and then Tony just kind of feeding us info on what to watch for and what these guys kind of think and the way these drivers think and what these crew chiefs think and how they act. It was absolutely incredible just sitting up there listening to these guys do their job and just experiencing every little moment of what they did. So huge shout out to those guys. Absolutely amazing people to get to meet, get to talk to, get to learn from, and just be around and listen to them as they literally do the best thing that they can do, and that is broadcast NHRA races. It was just a thrilling experience. Also got to meet Alan Reinhart, the PA announcer for the NHRA, which that was a really cool experience to get to talk to him for the brief few seconds that I was up there with him, because he had just came in to record the Lucas Oil Drag Racing Series sportsman races while we were getting ready to leave. So first, before we get into the All-Star Call-Out, let's talk about the Pro Stock Motorcycle qualifying wrap up there. Angela Sampey took home top honors in that division with a 6.796 at 199.88 miles an hour. So she'll have the number one rank going into tomorrow. Matt Smith finished second with a 6.8. Eddie Craywick finished third with an 8.26, followed by Angie Smith. Steve Johnson rounds out fifth with Jerry Savoy in sixth. Hector Arana Jr. finishes seventh with Joey Gladstone in eighth. Karen Stouffer finishes ninth with Mark Ingerson in 10th. Chip Ellis ranks 11th with Kelly Clont in 12th. Brian Oler finishes 13th with Gianna Evaristo in 14th. Scotty Polajek finishes 15th with Ron Tornow in 16th. Of the other drivers who did not qualify, that includes Malcolm Phillips in 17th, Chris Bostig at 18th, Gage Herrera in 19th, and Malcolm Phillips rounds out the 20 bike field. So tomorrow they will race. Let's take a look at the bracket. The number one ranked Angela Sampey will take on the 16th ranked Ron Tornow. Then we'll see Joey Gladstone take on Karen Stouffer, Angie Smith versus Ryan Oler, Steve Johnson versus Kelly Klontz. In the bottom half of the bracket, you're going to see Matt Smith versus Scott Polachek, Hector Arana Jr. versus Mark Ingerson, Eddie Krawick versus Johnny Evaristo, and Jerry Savoie versus Chip Ellis. I want to give a correction, it was Gianna Evaristo. Sorry about that. In Pro Stock, I talked about this earlier this week. At the very beginning on Thursday, right before the day before qualifying, I locked in my pick that I believe it was going to be Greg Anderson. The way he has raced the last few weeks, the way he has been this week. We talked to him on Friday. He was very loose, very happy. By the time we got up to talk to him, he was talking about Bucky Hess, the driver of the Psycho Cuda car that we showed off back on Wednesday. He takes home first place in qualifying, so he ranks number 1 going into tomorrow with a 6.567. So again, chasing that elusive 100th win, he is one step closer to achieving that goal. We talk about it as like how much of a story, like just a Hollywood story, that the guy who has been denied his 100th win all season gets it at the track where he is third on the all-time win list, second to tied with his mentor Warren Johnson, and then only right behind Bob Glidden. So huge stories on the line for Greg Anderson as he chases the 100th win, but he has to try and fend off the rest of this Pro Stock class, which has been absolutely incredible to watch qualify. These guys are as close as you could ask for. Dallas Glenn finishes second with a 5.78. Eric Enders takes home third with a 5.82. Matt Hartford finishes fourth. Bo Button third and fifth. Aaron Stainfield in sixth. Christian Quadra in seventh. Derek Kramer eighth. Troy Coughlin Jr. in ninth. Kyle Koretsky takes home top 10. Camry Caruso at 11th. Fernando Quadra Jr. in 12th. Chris McGahey qualifies 13th with Mason McGahey 14th. Kenny Delco in 15th, and the third, Fernando Quadra in 16th, rounding out your 16-car field. The two cars that DNQ'd would be Alan Brzezinski and Larry Morgan. Following them, let's take a look at the All-Star call-out. John Force called out Cruz Pedregon. Cruz lost a cylinder in his race. John takes home the win. Robert Height defeats Bob Tasker III, which was honestly the most anticipated and most looked forward to race of the call-out. Robert Height would take the win as Tasker spun his tires. As soon as he left the line, Robert Height would move on. Matt Hagan would go on to defeat Alexis DeJoria, and Ron Capps would get his redemption from last year's U.S. Nationals and take down Tim Wilkerson. Ron Capps would go on to the top end to call out Robert Height, setting up a match between Matt Hagan and John Force. Matt Hagan would defeat John Force, and then Ron Capps would defeat Robert Height, setting up a final round for the $80,000 money between Ron Capps and Matt Hagan. Matt Hagan would, in the last round, struggled to make it to the end of the track. He spun it, had trouble making it down there. It looked like Matt Hagan would be the odds-on favorite and would run away with it because he had two very strong runs previously. But it would end up being a very close fight to the finish, with Ron Capps defeating Matt Hagan via a hole shot, which you don't know what that means. A hole shot is the situation where the way a NHRA race is recorded, it is the elapsed time added on with the reaction time. If you look at a camera, even with a hole shot, the car that wins is still in front. It's not like a situation where the other car won, but something weird happened. No, they did finish first. It's just the elapsed time is recorded a little bit after the starting line. That's how they measure reaction time. So it's your elapsed time added on with your reaction time. That's how Ron Capps gets the win. But with that, we also have a top 16 for the NHRA U.S. Nationals. Ron Capps takes home first. Robert Height finishes second. Bob Tasker III finishes third with John Force in fourth. Blake Alexander takes fifth with Tim Wilkerson in sixth. Matt Hagan finishes seventh. Jared Todd in eighth. Cruz Pedregon in ninth with Alexis DeJoria in the 10th position. Bobby Bodie qualifies 11th with Chad Green in 12th. Paul Lee in 13th, Jim Campbell in 14th, John Smith in 15th, and Dale Creasy Jr. in 16th. Justin Schreifer with D&Q finishing 17th, and Terry Haddock finishes 18th. And a look over there in their bracket for the U.S. Nationals, Ron Capps is going to be slated to take on Dale Creasy Jr. J.R. Todd is going to take on Cruz Pedregon. John Force takes on Paul Lee. Blake Alexander takes Chad Green in the first round. In the bottom half, you're going to see Robert Hyde versus John Smith. A repeat from the first round of the call-out, Matt Hagan versus Alexis DeJoria. So Alexis is going to look to get a little bit of redemption as she takes on the 7th-ranked Matt Hagan. Bob Tassik's going to take on Jim Campbell, and Tim Wilkerson will take on Bobby Bodie. With that, I want to go back and take a look at the Pro Stock bracket because I forgot to do that at the end of Pro Stock. So Greg Anderson is going to take on Fernando Quadra. Derek Kramer is going to take on Troy Coughlin Jr. Matt Harford takes on Chris McGahey. Bo Butner takes on Fernando Quadra Jr. And on the bottom half, you're going to see Dallas Glenn versus Kenny Delco, Christian Quadra versus Kyle Koretsky, Erica Enders versus Mason McGahey, and then Aaron Stanfield versus Chris Crusoe. Or, my bad, Camry Crusoe. And then lastly, we're going to take a look at the top 16. This is the fastest field in top fuel history going into this race. And what a better way to start it than with the lady who now owns the track record for lapse time and the speed. She absolutely obliterated the run that Justin Ashley had set the previous day, qualifying with an astounding 3:37.75. I was up in the booth watching that race, and it was absolutely incredible because we sat there and they were recording one of the races, and then when they got the times in for Brittany's run, they actually had to abandon the take because they all looked over at the timing and scoring screen to just look at it. And I remember Ryan looking over and say, sorry, we have to redo that. She just shattered this track record. So an absolutely incredible moment there for Brittany Forrest, as now she owns the track record and the number 1 qualifying spot going into tomorrow. Justin Ashley finished his second. Steve Torrance in third. He won the top fuel call out. He just won last week 2 weeks ago back at Brainerd. Now he sits third ranked, looking to take home the U.S. Nationals and stay on a roll. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if he won it. You talk to him, he has that confidence, he has that swagger, he has the momentum, he has everything he needs to take home that win. I picked Tony Schumacher. Tony qualified 13th. I'm not sure exactly how that's going to go. I could see Tony making it to the semifinals. If he makes it to the finals, that's an incredible comeback after the week he has been through. So expect him to maybe run a bit deeper. Mike Salinas qualifies 4th. Clay Milliken qualifies 5th. The Rick Ware Racing, the newest entry. I'm going to try and get an interview with Clay tomorrow because I really want to talk to him about this. An incredible story out of there. Usually this season they have kind of had a bit of luck come qualifying. They usually qualify down in the bottom half, and they struggle to make it out of round 1. The first week with Rick Ware Racing, they have a Ford backing for their engine program, and they have Valvoline backing them as well. So a lot of big sponsorships being brought over to that team, a lot of money being pumped into it to help them improve their funding that they are trying to look for. And now he finds himself in the top 5 qualifying at the U.S. Nationals. Antron Brown finishes 6th. Billy Torrance qualifies 7th. Josh Hurt in 8th. Doug Foley in 9th. Leah Pruitt stays in the top 10. Trip Tatum qualifies 11th. Doug Coletta in 12th. Tony Schumacher, like I talked about earlier, is in 13th. Austin Prock is in 14th. Sean Langdon qualifies 15th. And Don Mercier takes home the final spot in this crowded, packed Top Fuel 25-car field. Of the other drivers who did not qualify, that includes Kyle Wurtzel, Spencer Massey, Alex Laughlin, a big name to not make the field. Will Smith, who we talked earlier in the week in his Top Fuel debut, he will not race come tomorrow. Krista Baldwin, who, again, a rookie, making her first start at the U.S. Nationals, she will not race. Lex June, what seems to be the fan favorite. I've had a lot of people come up to me and talk to me about how I need to cover Lex June more. Well, his week has ended here at the U.S. Nationals. He finishes 22nd. Scott Palmer in 23rd. Cameron Fear in 24th. And Scott Farley finishes 25th without a time. Now taking a look at the bracket. Brittany Forrest, the now a very predictable heavy favorite going into tomorrow. She takes on Dan Mercier. Josh Hart's going to go on to take on Doug Foley. Mike Salinas will take on Tony Schumacher. That's going to be an absolute dogfight between those two. That is my opinion on one of the races to watch, because who's right after them? A tale as old as time. They faced each other so many times last year. Clay Milligan's going to take on Doug Coletta. And Clay, that team is looking to get out of the first round. They just announced a deal with Rick Ware Racing. Doug Coletta is going to have a very hard time trying to beat that now Rick Ware Racing number 51. On the bottom half of the bracket, Justin Ashley versus Sean Langdon, that's another good race. Billy Torrance versus Leah Pruitt, a good race. Steve Torrance versus Austin Prock, and then whoever wins that is going to face whoever wins between Antron Brown and Trip Tatum. Now with that, qualifying's over. We have a lot of people who have a good shot of winning the U.S. Nationals this week. A lot of my picks, I honestly feel, are going to stay the same. I still feel confident in a lot of my picks. Between everybody that's out there, Joey Gladstone qualified 8th. I'm not too confident in that. He's going to have a hard time trying to make it up to the field. I honestly am looking maybe at a Matt Smith win. He's been fast. He had his struggles in the opening round of qualifying. Since then, has come back. Now sits P2 going into the Nationals. I could see him possibly getting that win. But I would not be surprised if Angela St. Pé takes it because she's been on a roll the entire season. Pro Stock, like I said, Greg Anderson, lock it in, take it to the bank, deposit it. I am putting my bet on Greg Anderson getting that 100th win in his 170th final round appearance and breaking the tie with his mentor, Warren Johnson. He is my pick for tomorrow. I don't know how anyone else can beat this guy. In Funny Car, Ron Capps has been on an absolute roll. We talked to him in the media center after his P1 in qualifying. He sits at the top. Bob Tasca fell to third. He was my pick for the race. I could still see him winning. Bob Tasca is a guy who you do not want to count out. He's a guy that can absolutely upset people. He's in third. That's not an upset. I genuinely can see Bob Tasca pulling off the upset because Ron Capps, he's tried for so long to win this race. It'd be fantastic to see him win this race. Do I see it? He would have to have everything go perfectly, which is how you need to win these U.S. Nationals. I'm not sure. He has the momentum. He has that swagger and that confidence. That he was very humble in his interview. You could tell how much getting that Pepsi Boys All-Star call-out win was for him. I could either see both Capps and Tasca. I don't see anybody else having a shot at this. I don't see Robert Height, John Forrest, Alexander Hagen, Todd, nobody. I think it's going to be down between whoever wins between Tasca and Capps. Those are my picks over there. Top Fuel. Again, I see Steve Torrance. Just the way that he has been, the way that team is, the way how loose they are and how confident they are, that swagger that he has. That is not a guy you want to have confidence in the swagger that he has. If they let him, he won that race heads up on Saturday. He is on a fire. He has a good and solid opportunity to take home Top Fuel win at the U.S. Nationals and going into the countdown. He could be a legitimate threat. He could have a comeback of the season and turn around after having such bad luck throughout the season of trying to win a race. He won it back at Brainerd. He now is 2 for 2, winning the call-out. He sits third going into tomorrow morning. Brittany Forrest set the fastest lap, and she also was announced. She said in the post-race media conference, which you're going to listen to earlier, she was going for the national record. She was putting everything out there. She had already qualified P1. They wanted the $30,000 bonus for the Mr. 300 challenge. It would have been Mrs. 300 challenge at that rate. But because of the rain that came in, she didn't get the opportunity to. But even though she's that fast, again, Steve Torrance, I think he is going to take this one home. My pick has changed over there, just like with Pro Stock. Those are my predictions for tomorrow. So again, Brittany Forrest, either Tasker or Capps. Greg Anderson's going to get his 100th. And then I see Matt Smith possibly winning this Pro Stock Motorcycle class. But again, absolutely incredible qualifying. Just so many stories coming out of it. Ron Capps hitting the wall in the first round to being P1. Brittany Forrest and Justin Ashley trading the national record between each other. Pro Stock Motorcycle and Pro Stock, absolutely thrilling. Just how close these times are across the board. We're in for an incredible U.S. Nationals. Obviously, the weather is going to play a bigger factor. They moved the start time up to try and get away from the rain. I don't know if that's going to help. It's going to be a big what if the rain comes in. They're going to have a very green racetrack come tomorrow morning, and it's going to be a very, 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 very exciting conclusion to this year's edition of the U.S. Nationals. Again, this week is flown by. Honestly, I'm going to be honest, like, completely transparent on this one. This week has flown by. This has been an absolutely incredible experience. I have 1 day left, but all the memories I made, all the connections I made, getting to meet the legends of this sport and the faces and the voices that run this place has been absolutely jaw-dropping experience. So again, we have 1 more day left, but again, thank you to the NHRA, thank you to the drivers, thank you to the PR people, thank you to the announcers, thank you to people like Brian, people like Alan, people like Tony, Will, the PR people like Jessica and Nikki, and Elon. Elon's been, if you're watching Elon, thank you so much for all you've done. The people in the media center have been absolutely kind to me. I have loved being in there. I have loved interacting with these people and talking to them. I have 1 more day with them, and then hopefully I see them down the road. I hope to go to a couple more national events, but again, we still have tomorrow. We have a lot of coverage left in us. I'm excited to see where this goes, and I'm excited to see what the future holds. Until then, do me a favor, comment. I also want to hear. Tell me what your favorite pick is, who you're rooting for come tomorrow. If you're going to be at the event, I want to hear your picks. Just be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram. This has been an incredible experience. Thank you to everyone who has helped make this possible. And again, I will see you Monday on Eliminations. Until then, this has been Mighty Mac, and I will see you next time.